All right, right now, Europe does not realize that Russia is its only survival, and they're going to have to pivot their economy to be able to continue doing business with Russia and getting cheap gas to keep their economy going. They haven't jumped to that conclusion yet, but two things need to be made very clear to them. The first thing is that Trump, who has always hated NATO and always spoken against it, has already let these guys know very clearly and unambiguously that the U.S. is not there for NATO, not just NATO, and not there for the U.S. Europe as an economic power. They asked him, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, what does he think about NATO? He says that it's a waste of time and that basically it's a paper tiger that's not worth defending. Then yesterday, in his statement speaking to the United States people, he said that he said he didn't say any countries particularly. He said, but a lot of countries and a lot of our allies, it's going to be up to them to open the Strait of Hormuz because basically we might help them a little bit, but now it's their duty, especially since they didn't help us in this war. Okay, so this is basically his sour grapes about them not helping, and he's basically saying that if European countries can't help us in wars, and NATO countries can help us in wars and can help us to unlock the Strait of Hormuz. They don't need our support. And he said also that if they can't get the strait open, they can buy our liquid natural gas, which is going to be my second pivot. The forces of economics and geopolitics will make it impossible for Europe to survive unless it stops antagonizing Russia and goes to Putin and makes a deal. Because now that Iran is controlling the Strait of Hormuz and the prices of gas and oil are going up, Europe's will have no choice because it doesn't have a lot of natural gas and resources to drive its economies. They'll have no choice but to take sanctions off of Russia and buy this very cheap, very inexpensive product that Russia has, which is 3 to 4 times less expensive than liquid gas shipped from America, which doesn't make sense, which comes along with a lot of unreasonable demands that Trump would make. Now, at the same time, Russia's economy is burgeoning now, despite this war against Ukraine, which is being funded by Europe and America, and they're doing very, very well. And even Trump has come to Putin to ask for concessions and say that he's willing to take um, sanctions off of Russian oil and natural gas because Russia right now has the market cornered now. He has the advantage. He has leverage due to all of this. So it just doesn't make sense for Europe. And I'm to continue with this rhetoric about building their economies, especially Germany, to be anti-Russian and to fight them because it's not economically feasible. It might have been slightly feasible if Iran didn't control the Strait of Hormuz and gas wasn't being sold and bought now in Chinese yuan, which shows the rise of the BRICS. BRICS countries are their economies are increasing by 3% every year now. I think G7 countries is it's one point something. So BRICS countries are increasing their GDP by 3 times. So there's a new world order since World War II. The first order was the Bretton Woods order, where the U.S. was the fiat system of the dollar was the fiat power, and U.S. controlled resources. But now countries are taking back their resources. Iran is controlling its oil. The global South countries are controlling their resources and dealing with China rather than the U.S. So Europe doesn't have that cow to feed it anymore, and they don't have many options. What Europe has is very well educated people. They've got good technology, but they don't have feel anything to feel their energy crisis. So they have no choice but to pivot towards Russia. And our show is about the fact that NATO is over. And when I say NATO, I'm not just talking about NATO as a military group, but I'm talking about the economic and military alliance of the U.S. and Europe is over now because the whole point of NATO was to encircle Russia and China and control world resources. That's over because we're now in a multipolar world, whether people want to agree it or not. We've just seen live on TV the U.S. and Israel get whooped in a stalemate with Iran. It's a stalemate actually, because yeah, they're killing a lot of Iranians, but they didn't get the top of the regime. And now Iran is actually making more money off of its oil and controlling its oil and shifting the oil from the petrodollar to the petro yen. So we're in a new world. So NATO makes no sense. And the only way that Europe can be salvaged by getting cheap goods from China and by getting cheap oil and gas for their production is to stop aggressing China and Russia. So de facto, NATO is done. What are your thoughts, Afolabi?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, from the statement of I think it's Donald Trump that called them a one-way street, basically complaining that Europe expects the US to defend but does not reciprocate when America needs their support. So it's obvious that all along they were strange bedfellows. And it's a rude awakening for the European NATO countries because now they realize that they were just a pawn on the chessboard of America to, attain their own selfish means. And now that they have realized that, so grimly, the only option they have, like you rightly mentioned, Germany is a case in question. I mean, it's an industrialized economy, but they don't have gas. So they're going to have to pivot towards Russia. And Russia's endurance in the Ukraine war has shown that, I mean, that basically, they have all the aces. They basically won this war. So without cheaper Russian gas, economically feasible Russian gas, the major economies in Europe, especially Germany, will struggle to compete. And, high energy costs, plus including the crisis in the Middle East, are already hurting a lot of their industries. I mean, look at the major car companies in Germany, the Mercedes, the BMWs. I mean, Germany is highly industrialized, but they need gas and oil to push all these things through. They're all suffering one recession or the other. So the bottom
Yeah.
line is Europe needs stable, affordable energy, and Russia remains the most logical and practical large-scale supplier through pipelines. And right now, if you consider the crisis in the Middle East, Russia is the only person that Iran is willing to talk to or listen to. So basically, whether they like it or not is not a matter of we're still considering. The only viable option now is to pivot towards Russia.
No, if they don't do it, it's going to be a catastrophe for their economies. They're going to have
Yes, absolutely.
massive, 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 what you call it, inflation
Recession,
in their country,
recession.
recession and inflation. Yeah, your massive inflation. So they have no choice now. On on paper, they're still, they. Here's the funny thing: they're still saying that they want to ban Russian energy for good, but they delayed this thing. See, and the reason they're delaying it is because they want to continue enjoying at least some limited Russian oil and gas for now because they need it because the Strait of Hormuz is down. But what they're doing is that they're hoping that in the future things will change and then they can eventually cut Russia off for good. But Russia is going to say no. It's all or nothing now. Take the sanctions off now. Give us security agreements. Uh, accept that you've lost in Ukraine, which is what Europe doesn't want to do. What they want to do is continue holding on to hope that they can fight Russia, but at the same time they don't want to fully put sanctions on them. No, sanctions is an act of war. It's an act of war. Sanctions are an act of war. You can't be at war with a country and then say, "Oh, we're going to only put limited sanctions on you, and we're still going to do business on you." No, Russia will cut total business with them because they have more than enough um, people. India, China, and other parts of the world that need natural gas and oil, so they don't need Europe's money, whatever that money is anyway. So, like I said, no matter what the European leaders will say, this will be a gradual process. It won't be overnight, but within the next few years, um, America and NATO will still exist in name, but when you look at the business operations on the ground, everything will be a multipolar world, and it'll just be gradual. Maybe 300, maybe 60 years from now, people will even forget that there were ever sanctions on Russia. So you'll see a gradual normalization of relations between the European countries and Russia because BRICS has won, basically. BRICS has won. BRICS' economy is now bigger than the G7 nations together. China is getting stronger. Gold is now becoming the reserve currency of the world because of the power of China and the sinking of the US dollar through this war and through a military economy, which didn't function on production, which didn't function on technology, which didn't function on education, which didn't function on anything that equates to real money. America doesn't deal with real money. They've been having the petrodollar where they they sell oil sell they give dollars to Arabic nations to buy their oil, but then the Arabic nations give it back to them and invest it in bonds and everything, and they live off of the interest. That's over now. Even UAE and Saudi Arabia and other countries will have to now enter the multipolar world where they're no longer America's vassals. They'll still be friendly to America, but they're not going to be their vassals anymore. The Asian nations are doing worse right now because of this stranglehold on Hormuz and on what's the other one? Makaba. What's the other one called?
I think it's Macabre or something.
No, something like that.
Another strait. There's another strait. Yeah.
The other Malacca, the other strait. So they're even worse. gas is or oil barrels to them are $128 per barrel. So all of them are also going to have to jump into Japan and all these countries that are loyal to America. They're going to be like America. We're not against you, but we're going to enter into China's Silk Road Initiative economic system, which is multipolar and which there's no losing. There's just win-win. So that's all I have to say. So rest in peace, NATO. NATO's dead. It just doesn't know it's dead yet. Rest in peace, U.S. and Europe alliance of hegemony. They're still going to be aligned with each other, but they'll be entering into multiple relations now. We see it with Canada. Canada is now aligned with China in certain ways too. So what we're going to see in the world is nobody's anybody's friends. It's all transactional, but we all enter alliances that make sense. And the only alliance that makes sense is mutual trade throughout the world and competition, but war doesn't make sense. That's the model that the U.S. came with after the 1940s, after they won World War II, is to control the world through violence. That doesn't work. It has to be through trade, negotiation, and diplomacy. That's all I have to say. Last thoughts are follow me, then you can take us out.
Yeah, basically, I think the emergence of the BRICS bloc has given them an alternative. And like you said, it makes sense for all the parties. I mean, if you look at the BRICS bloc, the economic growth has been faster compared to the G7. Now they're beginning to encourage trade outside the Western financial systems, while also there's a global campaign for de-dollarizing. So there's going to be stronger ties between China and Russia, along with the NATO countries of Europe, whether they like it or not. And then the choice for Europe now is, would you stay tied to the slower Western system or engage more with the emerging Euro-Asian economic space? So the choice is theirs now because, like you said, NATO is dead. I mean, they're just waiting to perform the funeral rites. So, and if you look at the way Trump is now, it's so unpredictable. You don't know his next move. I mean, for a country that is serious and planning for the future, the foreign policy of the United States is becoming more inward looking, and NATO commitments now appear conditional and an option to them is no more their priority. So what they need to do now is to begin to cooperate and, support the BRICS initiative, see how they can engage in
Yeah, or
bilateral,
at least work with them. You don't have to support them, but you have to work with them. Yeah.
work with them, bilateral
Mhm.
trade ties based
Yeah.
on mutual benefits. So
But I
that's
follow
what
me.
I feel they need to do.
Yeah, I follow me. You didn't get the memo though, didn't you hear? The U.S. is moving to a music economy. Trump is a singer. We've been doing very good this week. Yes, we have. We've we had a great victory. A great victory. What a singer! I like his voice. It's very melodic. All right, I follow you. Take us out, man.
You see, this
Very
NATO
good
thing,
show.
this NATO thing is what they call 419 in Nigeria. It's been 419
What?
all along.
NATO is a racket. It's a criminal syndicate.
Exactly.
Criminal
It's a fraud.
fraud. Yeah, take us out. Based on
Okay.
printing money to build weapons and try to steal people's resources. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, it's been a brilliant show. We've been discussing NATO and the choice they have. Uh, since now they've become Americans' option and not priority. And for Mustafa and myself, we'll be back with another brilliant political show. Bye for now.
Bye. I feel like, but you notice how Trump speaks like that now, right? Like
Yes,
he's a
so
singer.
yeah, so like he's
His
miming,
speech,
like he's
his speech
miming.
last night, very relevant. We're winning. We're winning so greatly. All people waited to watch that speech. He didn't say anything new. Same
No, no, no,
lie.
no, no,
Iran
no,
is not listening. He said the war
no,
will be over in 3 months. He
no.
keeps saying that so that Americans don't panic. You get what I'm saying? These guys,
Yeah.
they gave me extra money. They gave me an extra $20 now. They're giving me um 10, 20 cents per gallon now, DoorDash, because they know that their people want to quit because they're not making money from the fuel. So they give us a rebate.
Oh, okay. So it's like,
You understand?
it's a rebate. Okay.
For the money for the petrol. Because you know why? The people who run DoorDash and run all of them, they're all connected. They're all the same people connected in the war. So they say, okay, we'll give them back some small money because we have to keep this war going. You see how it works, you know? Because a lot of people for DoorDash were saying, let me quit because the fuel is not making it worth it anymore. What I have to pay for
No,
petrol.
no, it's not. It's not.
It's, anyway, we'll talk. So we're done for today. I
All
guess
right.
maybe later on, if we do anything, it'll be around 9 o'clock. I'll let you know. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.